All right, here with Jon Randall. Jack Ingram might show up. It's a little late, but we figured why not let him jump in whenever he's able to.
Well, good. So, we can talk about him behind his back till he gets here.
Right. I was reading some of the old articles too about him back in the day and his Nashville move, so we wanted to ask him about that. But yeah, you actually bridged a lot of those gaps too, and we'll get to that with artists that go Texas, Nashville. Some go Nashville, Texas now with Chase Bryant.
Yeah.
But the big news that you guys had recently, and one of my favorite pieces of art in a long time, I think, like album-wise, was the Marfa Tapes. And I think for me, and I don't want to speak for Wes, but we get a little jaded by the industry, right? The mainstream, the way things are done, the radio, all that stuff. When I hear that album, I was like, this is what it's all about. This is what made me excited to like get into like country music to begin with for Whiskey Riff. Right. And you guys kind of evoked that emotion listening to that.
Great.
So there's so much to talk about, but just the start, the idea, where did that kind of ignite?
The idea of putting this out as a record?
Yeah, just like, we're going to do this and we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it. Where did that start? Who started?
Well, it started, we'd been going down there for a few years. It started in 2015. And I think the first trip we went down, we wrote like 8 songs on that trip. Like we were just writing like crazy. We were just so inspired. And it was like, Miranda was going through all her crazy stuff, and it was kind of like a therapy ride for everybody, And then the last time we went down there to write, we set up late and we went and sat in a car and we just listened to. We're like, let's listen to all the stuff that we wrote on that first trip, which was 2015, and we hadn't really visited those songs in a while, So that we were listening to those work tapes, and Miranda was like, "Man, people need to hear these." And the original thought was, why don't we just throw out the work tapes off the iPhones, just the voice notes? But there was some of it, the cows were so damn loud you couldn't hear the words. It was like,
too raw,
tipsy. It was a little too, we want people to be able to understand the songs and get it. But then that's what led to, well, why don't we just come back down here and throw up a couple of mics out here in the desert and just let it be what it is. And Miranda's funny because she knows I put on my producer hat if I get a second, and I'll be like, hey, let's run that again. And maybe and she's like, she'd start applying tequila to me about noon so that I wouldn't give a shit when we finally got to, I'd be like, yeah, that's great, man. Let's just run it once. We're good. And that's what it was, man. It was really like, we wanted it to sound like people were hanging out with us and, part of the group in the recording process, just sitting there listening to us get through these songs,
What you talked about tequila, because what was the drinking process? What, you're out there, you're recording. Are you guys boozing all day? Are you smoking peyote?
Yeah,
doing mushrooms.
Peyote. They're drinking stuff down there though called sotol. And if you get it in Mexico, it has it's kind of like tequila, but it's a different plant, different cactus. But they put peyote in it down there. I haven't had it, but supposedly it's like having a Vicodin and a shot of vodka at the same time. So,
sounds like we could use one of those.
Yeah, I know, man. The whole world could use one of those right now. But yeah, we're just tequila seems to be the drink of choice. It's kind of fitting. It is for me anyway. So yeah, we just when we got ready to record, we'd usually pour a drink and it's just so beautiful out there. You feel like you're playing, I've said this before, but it's kind of like you feel like you're playing the soundtrack to a movie that you're in, because it's just so vast and you feel like you're in a painting everywhere you look. So there's kind of a vibe that goes with it. And so, yeah, we put away some tequila for sure.
Right on. Were you guys on like a schedule where it was like wake up right in the afternoon, maybe record later kind of thing? Or was it more like, let's just hang out and see where it goes?
Yeah, that's kind of the deal. That really is the deal. Writing's always been like that. It's like, whoever was up first drinking coffee, sometimes I'd get up early and I'd get a cup of coffee and I'd get a little melody going, and Miranda brings this up all the time, but it's so true. It's like everything everybody says down there sounds like a song. We're always pontificating and getting into deep conversations. And you get to a point where you have to just put the guitar down because somebody will say something and you'll be like, oh, hey, wait, check this out.
Mm-hmm.
You start piecing together like a song. So that was always kind of our process. But for the record, we weren't, we filmed it too. We had Spencer Peoples down there, and he did a beautiful job of capturing the visual of what was going on. And so we weren't really on a schedule, but it was basically like, once everybody gets up and running, let's figure out where we want to go set up. Because some of it was, we set out on the ridge, kind of overlooking the sunsets. Some of it we did in the house. If the wind was blowing too hard, we'd have to go in the house because it would just, it's just too noisy.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned the cows and stuff earlier, but that ambient noise kind of thing, like the little imperfections in the background, like make it so, it's kind of what drew me in initially. When you start hearing that, it's like so different.
Yeah.
Was there any, knowing all of you three as like artists and songwriters and all that, it's like, I don't, this is definitely not something most people would think, but internally, did you guys think, oh, would this ever come off as like, we're trying to do something different just to do it different versus like, no, this is just like being organic as can possibly be? Because to me, it's just like, I feel like most artists would be scared to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, and most artists would. And
Right.
and I think a couple of things, the whole quarantine and the whole COVID trip gave us an opportunity to do that. I mean, if Miranda was touring and working on her new record, I don't think we would have been able to even do it, And
Yeah.
so, and I don't, we weren't trying to be too cool for the room. The whole original plan was why don't you just, I was kind of like, wasn't even really including myself in there. I was thinking more like a producer, just going, hey, Miranda, you ought to put these out for, some of these out to your fans just as work tapes and let them hear, the process, and it'll be just something cool. But the more we talked about it, the more she really wanted to make it count, and it's the first thing on her label, her new label. So it actually it got a little bit bigger than I think any of us thought it would be. I don't think we anticipated we'd be doing Tonight shows and TV shows and
Right.
Getting offers to do those kinds of things. So it's kind of been a fun ride because I usually stay behind the scenes a little bit, and it's been fun to get to be in a band.
Yeah, right.
But I'll tell you, I mean, Miranda she's one of the bravest artists I know. In this, things like this and Pistol Annie's are exactly why. I don't know, and this is not a slam on any of, I've worked with every female artist in this town and toured with every great female artist in history, and this is not a slam, but I just don't know very few female artists that would go out there with a film crew and not take hair and makeup and wardrobe. And I mean,
Yeah.
She puts her makeup on and she threw a cowboy hat on, and that's Miranda, and you got her just like that, And I was kind of proud of her for that too, because I thought that was really cool, because we filmed it just like we recorded it, just kind of like nothing fancy,
No, not at all.
And there's the element of like, you can't hide anything when you do it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't know if you did it one take or not. It's kind of sounds like you did, or maybe two, but like, there's no like bells and whistles. There's nothing to hide. Yeah. It's like, this is how I sound. This is how we sound. This is, this
even
is
the banter, like kind of at the end of songs, I think that adds something. Like, you guys are kind of like laughing at the end of a song or something, or it's kind of like leading through, or, there's like a very human element to it. That's, I mean, pretty much doesn't exist anymore. I mean, maybe back in the day, those old like Eminem albums, he had those like skits in between. Like, these weren't skits. Like, these were like you guys just talking. Yeah, kind of became those bridges throughout
I love those. I mean, I grew up on records like that. I lived to hear people talking to each other in the studio for the same reason. It's like it makes it a little more real. Not as slick. We did a lot of that on Ingram's we made a record on Jag called Midnight Motel, and we left all the like in between song jamming.
Right.
We recorded it live on the floor, so it's just like what went down is what went down. And there's a funny moment where at the very end of the first track, we just nailed the track. It just turned out, we knew we'd nailed it, you know. And we left it in there because when the band kind of quit playing, there's a pause, and then you hear Ingram go, time to drain the swimming pool, got to make a video. I was like, we have to keep that in there, man.
Yeah,
That's
we have
hilarious, man. You know, but
it
yeah,
sounds like Jack had a little scheduling mishaps. We're not sure if we'll jump on or not, but it's all good either way.
that's all right.
Yeah, we'll figure it out another time. Get the whole crew together.
Even in like Luke Combs's One Too Many, I think there's a part at the very end where he's like, that's a fucking country song. At least it sounds like that's what he says. And it's kind of like,
you got to keep that in sometimes.
you got to keep that in there. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, you're singing with Brooks and Dunn, and was there any moments with this project where you were like, let's maybe cut that. We sound a little too sloppy, a little too funny. There's even that element of like I mean, we've done podcasts like that where we're like, I've had an edible on a podcast and we're like, I don't even know what the hell happened. Let's just not publish that. Because we thought it'd be funny or like interesting or honest. Not
until you wake up the next day and you listen back and you're like, we thought it was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like those 2 a.m. voice notes where you're singing what you think is a really great song idea. And you listen to it the next morning, you go, what the hell was I thinking? That's terrible.
Well, I have that for tweets too. I'm like, I think of a funny tweet. I don't want to forget it, or a funny meme or something content driven for, I post it if I'm drinking or if edible or whatever. And then it's like a day later, maybe I forget about it, a week later, I look at it. I'm like, what could I have possibly been thinking? Like, I can't even like understand what I'm trying to,
where I came from.
Where I came from with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are out there drinking tequila, doing whatever. Yeah. It's like, did you ever have that? Like what Wes was saying, like you wake up, you're kind of hungover. You're like, let's listen to that. And you're like, what? Like, no. Like that's not the one.
No, we pretty much, there was only a couple songs that we did 2 takes of. Most of them were like 1 take, you know. They were just what they were, you know. Guitars were a little out of tune, but that's what we didn't want to get into, was just like, let's just let it be what it is. There's one song that we did twice just because we were trying to get a really good film shot of it, and that's one that we did so we could make sure we got the film on it, and the film you can hear the coyotes howling in the middle of the solo section, which was like cue the coyotes.
right
You know, it was and the border patrol helicopter flew over us while we were singing Tequila Does, which was absolutely like planned, perfect, you know.
Right.
That's a little different than me living here in Colorado. And I was walking the dog the other day, and if you go through these like trails in these parks, some of the houses have like balconies over and they can kind of see you. I'll just hear a random somebody, just saw a coyote, like screaming, I just saw a coyote because I'm with my dog. And I'm just like, so it's like, that's a new thing. That didn't happen in Chicago, right?
Exactly.
You're walking your dog and people scream, just a warning. So not quite as exciting as you guys like recording music, but I was
Jesse and I were horseback riding with just like a couple of people in Colorado outside of Silverton. And we came up on a mama bear and her cubs. And she kind of followed us down the trail, and it was, you know, a little bit, and we went about half a mile and we ran into some local hikers, and we're like, hey, there's a mama bear and her cubs back there. The dude was like, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. Just kept going. Like, those people out there don't care.
Yeah, right. They're used to it. Takes some getting used to.
Yeah, exactly.
There were some elements to this record that were like, you could hear the kind of fun, like even like Geraldine is one where Miranda starts ripping those like, and like, I don't know if that was planned or that's how you wrote it, but it almost sounded like you and Jack were a little like, oh, like that's funny. And then just kind of riffing and laughing with it. Like, how much fun was this project?
Really, really fun. Really, really fun. I mean, every time we go down there, we have a blast. Even when we're writing really, really dark songs, like we can tend to do, we're having a blast the whole time. I mean, we really have become like family, and fight like family and cry like family, and you know, we love each other like that. So when we're having fun, we're having a lot of fun. And that was, I mean, I think it was just cool. We're just sitting out there on the tailgate of a Bronco watching the sun go down and playing music. I mean, nothing's better than that. You know?
That's how you draw it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wish more of what you hear out of Nashville sometimes is like went back to that, because we spent a lot of time in this podcast talking about like the TikTok craze, or what we grew up listening to on the radio. We're both, you know, like kind of 90s kids listening to the music on the radio back then, and kind of how it changed through the eras. And so hearing that type of stuff kind of resonates big time. It kind of takes you back a little bit. But we had a guy you're working with, Chase Bryan, on a couple weeks ago, and he's an interesting one, because we met him kind of right when he kind of started. We kind of started, and we happened to just go to Joe's for a concert. He was performing, we were talking to him, or he was opening, I believe, maybe. But kind of met him early on in his career. He had that quick success at the beginning, and then we all know the story by now. He kind of has been really open about it. Wild, but an inspirational story.
Right.
And kind of like had this epiphany of the bullshit and kind of separating himself from it, and the ego and all that stuff, as he said. And he went back to Texas versus kind of staying in Nashville and kind of doing it the way it's textbook Nashville. But then you also work with a guy like Parker McCollum, who kind of is the Texas star that now is in Nashville.
Yeah.
How do you kind of juggle when you're buddies with these guys, but you're also working with them? Is it similar, different? Is it hard to kind of, do you want to input advice, or is there no advice to give? Is it kind of a thing of you got to go kind of follow your heart? Because I feel like you can get sucked into some bad habits quickly when it comes to like the mainstream and the success and the money and all that stuff.
Right. Well, I think I know what I'm talking about when I say this. I'm not sure how this is going to come out, but I feel like both of those guys, we're all Texas guys, and we all know what we grew up on, and we all know what we think is cool and what we think the bar is, you know? And it's like, and we also know that, you know, some of the stuff that we loved growing up on was very successful commercial music, you know, things that we all listen to on the radio that we still think are great songs. And I feel like what both those guys, why they entrusted me, was that I understand, I've been in Nashville long enough to kind of understand the commerciality side and dealing with record labels and those kinds of things. But also I understand where we come from and it's a hard marriage. It's a really hard marriage to go, I'd love to make a Jerry Jeff Walker record, but we also got to get this past the promotion department at Universal.
Got to pay the
So
bills.
what is that? You know, I mean, one of the things I've learned that is really became a real disheartening epiphany for me years ago was, and this is not a slam at mainstream radio. Radio's been good to me. I'm not gonna shit on it, but the truth of the matter is, it has really become, the music is the filler between the Geico commercials. You know, it's the filler between the so things get really benign. It's kind of like, you know, sports talk radio, where sometimes it's on in the car, but you're not really listening to it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're talking about stuff that doesn't make you change the channel. And I think that's where we get in trouble, is trying to be so safe to make people sit and listen to. So radio will play it, because if it turns people's ears or they change the channel, then they don't want to play your song. I hate that that's the truth. But so there's a real balance in trying to go, you know, we got to do something commercial, but it's got to be really, really cool too, you know? So I feel like we got there with Parker. We just got his record turned in. So we'll see. We'll let everybody, everybody hear it.
When's it coming out?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure when they're dropping it. But I think he's at Joe's tonight.
He
was like 2 days ago, I think.
Oh, was he? Okay.
He did. We posted an acoustic video. He did a little Turnpike quick cover of a Good Lord Lori, and did well on our Instagram reels. And but yeah, that's a great example of a guy that we met a couple years ago and had him on the podcast in the office there. And you just kind of feel it. You're like, this guy is a superstar.
Yeah.
Now he's young, and what can happen is that's going to be on him and kind of the industry and everything else. But you see it, it's so obvious. It's like this is a very unique talent. Great songwriter, all that stuff. And we've kind of gravitated more towards the Texas style the last handful of years because, you know, we're not Nashville. We didn't go there. We like a lot of people there, and we've talked about it a lot, but it just didn't fit because even for our standpoint, we're not artists. We're not pitching music, but we're pitching other types of content. And we just realized, man, it's a dead end no matter where you go. Like there's very little room for you mentioned women earlier. It's like, they don't really let them do podcasts like this and shoot the shit. Like, thank God for like Delaney Wilson or Carly Pierce types that can come on here and have a glass of bourbon and laugh with us. But a lot of them are just like, oh no, but yeah, here's this guy that nobody like cares about. You want to have him on? We're like, no, you know? So it's like, but it's true. It's really, we've talked about it on the podcast plenty of times. And I don't know. It's just like, it's a weird thing, but, I get excited when I see a Cody Johnson and Parker kind of go to that mainstream with the hopes that it kind of resonates kind of through the rest of the industry. And maybe that's the song I hear in the radio versus whoever 3 times an hour, because that's what it's like. You hear the same song 3 times an hour. You're just like, is this real? My wife asked me, she's like, is this what it's like? I'm like, yes, this is what it's like.
I think Texas, there's some little behind the scenes things going on right now that are really interesting that are all aimed at Austin and Texas artists right now. I know that, like Spotify's watching the streaming is getting like starting to make a real dent out of the Texas music scene. So obviously where that means there's money, which means people are going, oh, okay, how can we get involved in this? But
now it's time to pay attention.
But what's cool, like we made Chase's record in Austin with Charlie Sexton and JJ Johnson, who are 2 of the greatest musicians in the world. I mean, Charlie Sexton's a legend, and there's a handful. Actually, there's 2 of my favorite studio musicians from Nashville just moved to Austin. So there's the thing about Austin. It's Texas too, but Austin in particular is. There's great studios, there's great musicians, there's great artists, there's killer songwriters. There's just no infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's no business of any kind, And I think if somebody does it the right way, and helps support, like, a Texas label by Texans for Texans kind of deal. There's a lot of people down there that are into investing into those things. A lot of artists that I think would benefit from something like that, So keep your eyes open because I think there's some things kind of starting to happen.
That just made me think, Wes. Was it Randy or Wade or somebody was talking about Austin and kind of the change recently? I'm trying to remember specifically what they said in like the music element of it. How was it the expense?
I think it was Wade or Randy. They were talking just about how expensive it is and how it's like. But also in like a positive, like expensive in a real estate and like growth way, but also positive in a sense.
The artist can't live there. Like maybe
I mean, Nashville's kind of getting the same way. It's like, it's too expensive for musicians to live in town. I know there's a guy down there that is a big supporter, and I think he's building like apartment complexes and
art
like,
commune.
and like trying to help musicians stay in town, So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, it'd be cool if that's really happening. I kind of heard that through the grapevine, but the governor's office has the Texas Music Coalition. Brendan Anthony, that used to play fiddle with Pat Green on the road, is running that office, and they're starting to make some cool things happen. So I'm kind of loving it because I'm getting to work. I get to write with Randy and Wade, and I get to work with Jack. And so I've really, in the last couple of years, I've bounced between Nashville and Austin. I'm in Austin a couple times a month anymore. And so, and it was funny working on Parker. Parker lived in Austin and we made his record in Nashville, and Chase was still living here, and we made his record in Austin.
Because they're sharing planes.
It's like, yeah, we're just going back and forth. So, but yeah, man, I'm glad you guys are supporting that crew down there. There's some good artists out there.
Oh, so many good ones. I've said it, like, I just don't skip as many songs, and even if the song is more, you know, surface level, nothing crazy, maybe it's just a drinking song or your standard mid-tempo song, it's still to me so much more appealing sometimes than some of the bells and whistles that you kind of hear. It's gotten a lot better though on the mainstream side.
Yeah.
With some of that like 90s country resurgence.
And every young artist I'm working with is obsessed with 90s country.
Well, so, but does that worry you if they're doing it because they think there should be versus a guy like, you know, I would Luke Combs, to me, just that's what he sounds like when he's, it's not necessarily he's trying to make we had Drew Parker on too, who writes with him, and he's like, I don't try to make a nice country song. I just kind of sound like that.
Yeah. Based on influences and what I grew up on and the music.
But some I could see chasing, oh, should I make do a little piano thing? Or, you know, I remember like the Tim McGraw song.
Well,
you know,
I think there's like, also, there's that thing of, I hear this a lot. It's like, I want to make like a 90s country record, but I want it to be modern production. And I understand what you're saying, but that's one of the things that made 90s country so cool was the production of those records that made it what it is, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't got to comment on, wasn't Chris Lane, Wes, like, I want to make it Kenny Chesney. I'm like, you can't. Oh, yeah. Like, you're not like.
Yeah, he told us he was going to make a Kenny Chesney record once, and then we were like, well, good luck, man. It's like aim high, I guess. But
like an old school Kenny Chesney record, they were so unique, kind of to the landscape of what was going on.
Like that's the thing too. It's like signature Kenny. You know, you can't replicate that. And like, I mean, we say this probably on every goddamn podcast we do, but it's like authenticity just like wins, and you can't fake that. Like you can't.
And Kenny's the real deal, man. It's funny. We were signed to RCA Records at the same time back in the mid 90s. And before he had it, I remember him and I in the fanfare booth signing autographs for like 10 people. And then Billy Ray Cyrus came through there with an entourage and jumped up on the table across from us and started moonwalking. And we lost our whole fan base right there. But you know, Kenny,
God, that sounds like such a move too.
Kenny's such a real dude. And the hardest, him and Miranda both, and Dierks too. This is something that I've noticed because I've known them all for so long now. They work so hard, like you cannot believe the work ethic, how hard, and the hard traveling, doing the hard dates, doing the fairs and the county fairs, and Kenny would play anywhere for anybody for free. And he won those fans over one at a time.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with young artists that, they get a record deal and they want to get on a $1 million Prevost bus and go play great. It's like, you got to ride around in a damn van for a while and shit in the porta johns behind the stage at the fair, like before you get to go do that,
shit in a McDonald's on the side of the highway.
I mean, that's the thing, man. But Kenny worked harder than anybody, and he created a sound.
I think the work ethic thing is such a great thing to put up. We see it more of the younger generation, kind of, whether it's sometimes an intern or whatever. There's like a disconnect, and we're not old guys, like we're in our young 30s, and I scratch my head and I go, man, was it my upbringing that like taught me, no pun intended with the whole Chase Bryant record with the upbringing, but the upbringing taught me something. I mean, growing up blue collar, I had immigrant parents and stuff. So it's just like, that's just ingrained. It's just, I don't know what it means to not try your hardest or kind of get fucked over and then keep going and all these things. But there's like this like, but there's such what a lot of the young artists portray, even at these TikTok stars, is this, everything's amazing. I'm so good. I'm so perfect. Let's go. It's like, you haven't done anything. You actually haven't done anything. You haven't sold tickets. You haven't gone anywhere. You haven't done the road. You haven't done any of this stuff. So I'm not an artist, but that annoys me. So I know like it probably annoys other fans too. If you're into an artist, like a Dierks. I mean, I even like a Kit Moore that you wrote with, and or wrote the Bull, I believe, for, and these type of guys. Like these are those like grassroots following artists. That doesn't just happen.
Mm-mm.
Brick
That's
by
work.
brick.
That's
yeah, and it's interesting too, because in these bigger, you know, the bigger the organization is, it's interesting because it really does start at the top of how everyone's attitude is on the road, you know. And it's interesting, like, because like Miranda and Dierks and Kenny and a handful of other great artists that are really established, and most of those, they know how to treat their people. They do the right thing. They treat like that, you know. I mean, Dierks kept everybody on salary all through this COVID thing. Like, you know, that's, while not playing arenas, you know, that's hard to do when you've got 50
including checks for the staff of his bars too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know. So, but you know, it's those kind of people that kind of are self-made in the business, you know, come up the hard way and work really hard to get what they got. They seem to be the cool people to be around, you know.
Do you find yourself as a songwriter, artist, producer gravitating towards those people more to work with? Or have you had experiences where you've worked with somebody where you're like, man, I just don't think we're vibing right. We're not from the same plane. We're not seeing things the same way.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky with all this production stuff, because most of it, the majority of it, is people I've known for a long time. And that's an interesting thing, because it's like, you know, I've been in town for so long.
Yeah.
And like, I met Dierks when we were just hanging out at the same bar. He didn't have a record deal, you know, and I met Miranda when she was like 18. And so, you know, I've known these people for like, and I've known Pat Green, I've known Jack Ingram. And the thing is they know what I do. And at a certain point they're like, hey, I want to make this kind of record. Can you help me make this kind of record? So it's kind of come to me just through relationships, you know. I have worked on a couple of things that were kind of, I wasn't close to the artist and the label. It's funny, sometimes the label, when they don't know what to do, they'll call me and I don't know why, because it's like, if the artists don't know who they are and the label doesn't know, I damn sure don't.
Can Jon Randall fix it?
Yeah, can you figure out who this person is as an artist? And there's been a couple of those that it just didn't work, you know. So I've been really lucky that really cool stuff, even in gigs too. Like I when I was playing on the road, I had really cool gigs. I was so lucky to get to just kind of go be me and not have to learn what was on the record kind of bands, you know.
I was looking at your incredible list of songwriting credits, and one that I completely forgot about, or maybe didn't even know, is one of the biggest tearjerkers of all time for me, is Whiskey Lullaby.
Oh yeah.
What's the story behind that with you writing that song?
Man, it's funny. My manager at the time made a smart aleck comment about we'd gotten really, really drunk. And
here's a perfect song.
Here's a perfect song for that. And he told me, he goes, man, you put a bottle to your head and pulled the trigger last night. And I was like, oh, that's a cool, okay.
That's a song.
So I started playing. That was kind of where it came from. And then the Whiskey Lullaby thing just kind of fell out. And I had little bits and pieces of it. And then I was writing with Bill Anderson. And he came in and wanted to write a title called Midnight Cigarette. And we ended up marrying these two ideas and wrote a 4.5 minute double suicide that somehow radio got away with playing. I don't know. It's not a drive time favorite, you know.
I don't know if
would that happen to these days?
I don't know. I mean, well, we got away with Tin Man.
Sort of. I mean, that should have been a number one song.
It made it to 22, but it was out for like 58 weeks or something. Like for like 30 weeks, it was like 22, 23. It just sat there.
Yeah.
But there again, another 4.5 minute sad ass song.
I've maintained that that's one of the best songs I've probably heard in the last 10 years. And I still am ready to go to war over why that song wasn't a number one song.
Yeah, I know.
When
you ever
see
get
some of the
pissed
number
about that
ones,
kind of
it's like,
stuff where you're like, see what's on a number one song? Because as a songwriter, you know, you want to have a number one song,
Right.
you get more money in your pocket and stuff and credentials, and that's feather in your cap. Are you kind of like, the fuck? Like, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's been a couple of those where it's like, because it's like I've only had a few hits. I've had a lot of singles, but so many of them died horrible deaths in like the 30s and 20s, you know?
Right.
And it's like that song and David Ashley Parker from Powder Springs was kind of like, I don't know how to give country radio any more than this. Like, I don't know how to be any more of that than that. Like, why can't I get a?
You got to rap, John.
Like the bull with Chet. And I mean, everybody was flipping over that song, but the station called the Bull.
Yep.
Oh, I was going to bring this up.
The station called the Bull wouldn't play it, and the sister station, the competing stations to the Bull wouldn't play it either.
Wait, hold on. Like, so I hope Kip's not gonna care. Yeah, he when we had him on the podcast, we talked about that, and I remember, you know, when we were editing stuff, we were like, maybe that, like, we don't want to talk about a radio station if it's the single or whatever, and we were kind of like, okay, cool. But looking back, and then after the podcast came out, we kept. I liked the song a lot, and Wes did too, and it's kind of like, how can you possibly, as a radio station, just you listen to that song and go, nah? To me, it's absolutely batshit crazy insane. Okay, I get it. You're called the Bull. The song's called but listen to the song. Can you listen?
Right.
There's nothing about it that's talking shit about a radio station.
Yeah.
And he didn't really get into it much, but you just like, dude, you wouldn't believe the radio, like the stuff that happens at radio.
And I think at the time he didn't even want, I think this was prior to the release when we had him on the podcast, and he was like, I want to release the Bull, but because of the radio stations, I can't. And then he ended up doing it after the fact, and it's still kind of middled out or whatever. But
well, it's funny. It's like, people say this in the business all the time. They're like, radio will make up any excuse to not play a song. And it sure felt like it with this one, because it was like the competing station didn't want the title to come up on the radio that said the Bull.
See, that
because that was the competing station. And the Bull didn't like it because it said, when I look back, it flipped the bull the bird. So they felt like it was derogatory towards their brand. And it was like, you're kidding me.
Right.
It's about a bull. It's about a
metaphor for life and hard times. And like,
yeah. It's just so that, you know, I will say this, man, and it's I don't know if it starts with radio or whatever, but I have noticed in the last few years, like, especially at major labels, and it's trickling down into the writing rooms. It really bums me out, because everyone has quit listening to music and going, I'm just listening to a song because I love it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Everyone's listening to try to find something wrong with it. If they can say if there's one little thing, they'll go, oh, that's not going to fit with our demographic between 25 and 30 females. That's not going to work. So songwriters are starting to pre-edit for that. It's like, well, somebody might not think this is not cool, or somebody might not drink. So let's just take the drinking out of it, or and that kind of scares me, because nobody's listening to music going, hey, I love the shit out of this song. I bet fans will love this too. It's, well, what's wrong with it? And then if nothing's wrong with it, it's probably really boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, artists that don't drink and are open about it are singing drinking songs on the radio.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that,
yeah,
oh, we don't want this song to come out because it's a little bit too depressing or drinking related or whatever. It's like, I want to hear women out there singing about like a party song or a drinking song like back in the day. Like, that's fun. You know, like one of my favorite artists right now is Lainey Wilson. We had her on the podcast. She's like that's so refreshing, the way she just like approaches the whole everything, all of it. And
Carly, Haley Witters too.
Those are all.
Yeah, and Lainey's another. Lainey's one that is working really hard, like loading up her pickup truck with band people and gear and you know, just driving herself in her bandit gigs, you know.
Yeah.
Tennille's that way as
well.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your biggest gripe? Because you're a veteran in the industry. You're a super successful guy. I mean, if anybody pulls up your Wikipedia page, you're going to see what happens behind the scenes with a person like yourself. But in general, do you have a major gripe, or are you seeing things better than they were? Is it just things change over time and bro country and all that stuff?
You just mean musically overall?
Just kind of country music in general. Maybe it's more Nashville based or.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do know, kind of back to what we were just talking about, that I see happen a lot is on almost every project, there's usually one song that is the favorite song. You know, it's like everybody knows it's the best song on the record, but they'll somehow talk themselves out of releasing it.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, why is that song? It's streaming like crazy and the fans are singing every word to it. Why is that not on the radio?
I don't know what.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, it's like sabermetrics in baseball. It's like, what are they looking at? If it's streaming well, if Twitter's a buzz about it, if Instagram's a buzz about it, all that stuff's happening. And they go, I don't know. It happened with us and Chase Brandon. We were at the Bar West, remember? And they're literally asking us, what do you guys think should be this is right when he started, the next single.
Yeah.
And they said what they were going to release. We're like, are you guys insane?
Yeah.
And then they ended up going with the one that we suggested. Maybe we made a difference, maybe not. But,
we said Little Bit of You should be a single.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Right off his first EP.
I'm like, if you want to do that Keith Urban poppy thing, I'm like, this is the song. And but when you get old crusty dudes and I don't know who else, like in a room, and they just listen to something and they go like, no, you don't know what you're talking. Do you even know how to like activate Spotify Premium? You know, I don't know.
Well, and I'll tell you that another gripe, if you want, one thing that I think I wish had not gone away is there's no artist development anymore.
Yeah.
The publishers are having to develop the artist.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, hey, back in my day, we wore wool socks. I don't mean to be that guy. But when I first got in the music business, the head of A&R and sometimes the head of the label were record producers. And every label back in the 90s, every label head or every head of A&R, vice president of the label, was a producer, well-seasoned record producer, and had really great ears and great relationships with the publishers and the great songwriters, and that's gone away.
Now it's a guy like me.
Well, there's I mean, other than Scott, and I'm friends with all these people.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that's when artist development kind of went away, when we didn't have, like, sometimes I don't have someone to go, they'll go, well, I don't like the song. I don't like the mix. Well, what do you not like about it? Well, I don't know. You know, like Scott Hendricks can go, dude, the snare, you need to pull that snare up, maybe, man.
Yeah.
You know, put some BGVs on that set, like, can talk shop.
Yeah.
And there's none of that anymore. And it's kind of like, so it's kind of in the hands of the publishers.
Bring the steel up front a little more.
Trying to, you know, put the money into a young artist, get them started. And just like, or like Parker got himself started.
Yeah.
You know? And it's kind of like, I'm not sure if they had signed him 2 or 3 years ago, they'd know what to do with him. Yeah. You know, and that's not on my people over there. I love working with that label, but you know, just overall as an industry, I just I miss artist development out of you know, where they just keep throwing a song out till it works. Kenny, you know, like Kenny Chesney, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I was gonna say, like, even like the whole Mason Ramsey phenomenon, like that was like crazy, and the kid's so young, and like from what we can see, like pretty young and talented, and like, is there anything being done to foster his talent and grow him for the future, or is it let's get a couple hits out, let's make a few bucks, and then if he flounders when he's 18 years old, who gives a shit?
He was trending on Twitter every other day, and when's the last time you heard of?
And like, there's some other like examples maybe like that where I'm kind of like, let's like slow down. I know money's important, you know, and success is important. We got a viral moment,
Yeah.
Like, is there an element of like, this kid's good, he's talented, he loves Hank Williams, he's singing a goddamn Walmart in Illinois.
Yeah.
Like, let's grow him up the right way.
Yeah.
Maybe spend the money now, and then when he's 25, he'll be a fucking rock star.
He'll have a big career.
And I don't know if they don't play the long game like that. I don't know the business that well.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know either. I do know that something that was happening, like, someone would put out a song the kind of independently, and it would just blow up on Spotify. It'd end up on all the playlists, and it would just blow up. And then there was no follow-up, because it was like somebody that really, they weren't thinking about, well, what's the next thing? And it's like, I think that happens a lot of times. It's like, you need to be prepared to have 2 or 3 more songs. What's your management situation? What's your touring thing? What are you planning on doing? If this song you put out there blows up, what's your plan? And a lot of times there was no plan. It's like, oh, we had this huge song. We don't have another great song to put out there. Now we're trying to figure out what we're going to do, and then we lose all that momentum.
We scramble to throw something out.
I mean, that's the TikTok sensation,
right? Well, that's what I was going to say.
They game the system. They get a record deal because it skyrockets on iTunes, and then if it happens to be November-ish, Christmas song. Come on, record a Christmas song quick, and then that same TikTok star releases a Christmas song, and then you don't. Nobody knows who you are. You're not selling tickets. You're not putting. Parker said this about asses and seats. It's like, do you do it or do you not?
Yeah.
You can't hide. Everybody knows where you perform. Like, you can't hide the fact that you can't sell out X place. Like, everybody can see it.
Yeah.
And there's certain artists who will have like a couple number ones, and then they're still playing, bar or clubs. And then there's other artists in Texas, like a Parker or a Co. Co can sell out 10,000 tickets in Texas. Like,
in minutes. He did I think he did 30,000 at that one festival or something. But that's Fandom.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about building fans on the road, show by show. Guys like Jack, who would have been nice to have on, not to shit on him, talking about, a road warrior like Jack, kind of building shit out.
He did the same thing. Went out there and put on a great show every night,
We had Cole on the podcast a while ago, and he's in a van, and we had terrible service trying to do a podcast as he's in a van driving through a cornfield. And he's got like a Brazzers porn shirt on or something, and that's just him.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's so obvious it's him, and so obvious when you meet people that's not them, but the label, the whoever behind the scenes, the grooming process is not a grooming process. It's a manipulation process of let's kind of create this image. I feel like the women get it worse. They're kind of kept in this little box more.
Yep, they are.
It sucks a little bit. You put on we have I think the best 90s country playlist of all time on our Spotify channel, and you listen to some of those songs from back in the day from the women, and it's like, let them sing those songs again.
Yeah.
But it tends to be much more tailored towards a certain type of thing.
Something that happened with female artists too was, I'm trying to remember what year it was. I remember being at the big CMA show meeting thing when they were like, this year we're turning country music into a party. It's going to be the biggest party night for country music. It's the party thing. So then it became this party, and then and I've talked to Dierks about this. So I'm not. This is nothing negative on Dierks. He agreed. We were hashing all this conversation out, but it's like, then you go to a Dierks show and he's stage diving and he's running all over the place, and it's the Garth thing where you're just it's a Kiss show, and then. And then people are tailgating. And so it's kind of turned into like a sporting event.
Yeah.
It's just like sporting, man. It's like everybody tailgates, they hang out, they get drunk, then they go in, they watch the show, and it's lights and blah, 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 blah. And nobody watches women's sports. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a little correlation there of, when it turned into a big circus and kind of thing, I think it kind of put women back a little bit because they don't stage dive. They can't go out there and do all that stuff.
Like you want Kelsey Ballerini in a skirt diving off the stage.
Exactly. Exactly. Like doing that kind of chugging a beer, on stage and, shotgunning and, all this stuff. I mean, the Dierks Bentley's most bang for your buck for a concert you'll ever go to,
Right.
But I think that, and I'm not alone in that opinion. I think it's, it's kind of a known thing right now. It's like, that kind of set women back. And that's why I think people are loving people like Lainey or like Miranda.
Ashley
Miranda is and Ashley, yeah, absolutely. Because they're so real.
Yeah, they'll take a handle of Jack Daniels and they'll
absolutely. Yeah. And it's like I wonder too, you tell me what you think, but sometimes I wonder if like the Luke Combs effect and the Ashley effect is like people are now really savvy to show business and how show business works. And I don't think they're getting as manipulated by the
circus that you mentioned.
They're not getting manipulated as much, and they're starting to go, oh, you know what? I really like Ashley McBryde because there's nothing slick. They're not trying to fool me. She's not trying to, come out here and be something that she's not. Maybe that's a good thing,
I mean, it's a great thing.
I think, 100%. I think that's why Miranda has always resonated. Like, I mean, I feel like when I put on a Miranda record, I'm like, all right, I'm getting a view into who this person is as a person and their life. And Ashley McBryde, same way. Haley Witters lately, I think is awesome. Haley's absolutely great. Awesome. Carly, even with this last project, the 29 project, like phenomenal stuff. And then you have other people coming up too, like a Morgan Wade, who's a little more in the indie scene, but like, I think it's we keep going back to this authenticity, being like, I see you and I see what you have to offer, and that's you. And I like that. I buy that. I want to hear your story.
And 100%. And John, we've said the story on the podcast before, but this was like a major label artist, and maybe after but to just give a perspective of when I say like some of the women artists on major labels are put into this weird place. There happened to be a case like at the beginning of Whiskey Riff where we're hanging out with a couple new artists that are kind of on the upwards trajectory. One's a guy, one's a girl. And it was one of their birthdays. So it's us four and
same label.
Like, let's do a shot at Tequila. And like, the female artist posted on Instagram. Cool. I think the male artist did as well. And then immediately the female artist gets a text message from somebody, take it down.
Yeah.
Just a shot at Tequila celebrating a birthday. Like it was a good photo. It wasn't like a weird thing. And I was like, whoa, that's how it works, man. And then that was, maybe 5-6 years ago at this point. But you see the manipulation or the kind of the control element, and you go, damn, that sucks. So even a young guy artist too, though, it's like if they want to make, I don't know, like Thomas Rhett, like he's going back to like whatever, kind of back to country or whatever, but did he go to pop because he was chasing that's what he wanted, or was he getting told to? That's what fans think about. That's what we think about.
Yeah, right.
Because it's always a thing where when you start to see somebody change a sound or hire a professional dance instructor, you go, well, I don't know, something's going on here behind the scenes. And as fans, you got to go, damn, that sucks. The reason people like latch on to a Miranda and Eric Church a lot of times is they're steadfast in their approach. They kind of stick to their guns, and they kind of don't let the outside noise influence too much of what they're kind of putting out there. And fans see that. I think fans that have their wits about them are always going to see that. Yeah. That's why an artist that may have a number one today, but can't sell tickets, he's not going to be around in 3 years. He's going to be one of those guys you go, oh, what happened to insert name?
Right.
We play that game here a lot. What happened to insert name?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember years ago, there was one of those sports cups at the publishing company, and it was from the late 90s, and it had like 30 artists on Curb Records, and there were two that you even knew. It's like McGraw and Leanne Rhymes. It was like, where is those 25 other artists,
Right.
you know. And one thing, I mean, I don't know, I obviously can't speak for Thomas Rhett and where he's going. I mean, I know he's always been very pop influenced and very smart with how he, approaches the way he does that. But I do think a lot of times artists will sign, this is when I talk about artist development. An artist will get signed that hasn't had a thing going on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're baby act, they're not touring. The publisher got them a deal somehow,
Yeah.
And I know I did this when I signed with RCA in like 95. I was like, well, shit, this is Elvis's label. I mean, these people know what they're doing, And so you get into the going, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to cut? And then too late into the deal, you're like, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you realize they don't know what they're doing,
No.
And I think a lot of times that's when you do get an artist that's very strong-willed and just goes, hey, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
How I want to do it. And I'm willing to die on the sword for it. If it flops, it's on me, Yeah. So but I have seen that happen a lot where it's like, if it's a new young act and they don't really have a strong sense of who they are as an artist, they'll rely on the label to try to help them get there, but
build that. Yeah.
You really can't, because there's no such thing as artist development.
Yeah. I feel like when we first started out doing this, we would go to Nashville pretty often and we would have meetings with all the labels and talk about their artists, and we'd leave and be like, the fuck they talking about? Like, and not with everybody, not with everybody. Cause
I know.
Well, half of them don't even know, not the top people.
Yeah.
The people that are traveling with the artists and like going to a podcast or going to a festival, like the PR people or what, they don't even know who, like, I'll never forget. I'm not going to say who, but this entourage comes into our office. We're like, Jesus Christ, relax.
Like 10 people.
Like you don't even have a song on the radio yet.
Yeah.
And we started talking about country music, and I mentioned Tyler Childers or something, and she's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "What? Like they didn't know who like Sturgill was or Tyler was. I understand they're not but I go, this is alarming. If you guys don't know who those people are, you're in charge of this new guy that's supposed to be something, like, you can't.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're just in it for what? For a paycheck?
Well, this is a really interesting thing. And I started years ago. When I was on radio tour, I started this research. I would ask radio programmers and the DJs and whatever. I'd be like, well, what music do you listen to? Oh man, I love classic rock. I'm like blah 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 blah. Well, what do you listen to? And so I start trickling down. I'm asking the promo guys. I'm asking the head of the label, and I'm asking all the marketing people. And then I start asking the publishers, and I'm realizing no one listens to the format. It's the weirdest thing. It's like,
it's a job.
Like, are we making music that we wouldn't buy? Like, why wouldn't we make music that we would buy?
Yeah, right.
That we should always be going, I want to make a record that I would actually get off my ass and go to, in the old days, go to Walmart and buy a CD of, but it's just so weird because it's like the artists don't listen to the format, the writers don't, the publishers don't, the promo people don't, the radio guys don't. It's the weirdest thing. Like, we don't listen to our own format. And the people I know that do listen to it are listening to it because they're songwriters and they're trying to figure out what the new sounds are and what they need to do to compete. But they're not listening because they're like, oh, I love this record. Very few. I'm not saying it's across the board, but it is.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight.
Well, that's why it's really refreshing when you hear somebody like, there was a interview with Miranda and Ashley McBride within the last year or two, just asking them about who they listen to and stuff. And Ashley was like, oh, I love Tyler Childers. He's as country as a homemade sock or some shit. She said like that. And you're like, okay, like Ashley McBride, like, is listening to country music. She loves country music. Miranda Lambert loves country music. And it's like, I hate to like be this like staunch traditionalist, because I don't think I am. But at the same time, it's like, have a little bit of respect.
At least know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be paying attention. But
You know what I mean?
man, it's such a bubble, though. I mean, that's the fun thing about me not losing my Texas roots,
Right.
Because
Because you go back and forth.
Yeah, and I get to work. I still work in the bluegrass land a little bit sometimes. I still get to do some of that, and I love it because it gets off that Music Row can be its own bubble and just have its head up its ass.
Yeah.
It's all about this one thing, and it's like, man, there's a whole lot of other great music going on out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of cool stuff going on.
Yep.
And huge markets around the world.
Yep.
that people listen to music and buy tickets for concerts.
Well, even in like Europe, like people love like rock country guys like Kip Moore, Eric Church, Cadillac 3. Like they'll sell tickets, they'll sell out ballrooms, and shit over there. Like it's kind of interesting. Like, oh, these part of the world likes this, and then Kentucky has a huge market for their artists, which are phenomenal. Some of the best in the business right now coming out of Kentucky,
oh gosh, yeah,
West Virginia area, and then
yep.
Texas is continued to be a mainstay of like solid country music, and it's just cool to see like, oh, there's other things out there. You just got to find it.
Well, that's one thing. I mean, obviously, songwriters are just getting absolutely killed on streaming.
Yeah, but
the gatekeepers are gone. You don't have to have a major label deal to get a song to fans. You might need one to get on radio, mainstream country radio, reporting Billboard radio, but you don't have to have a major label deal to make music and put it out. And I think that's opened it up for there's a lot of shit out there, but there's some really great artists out there that are making music on their own terms without having to play the game. And that's pretty cool.
Totally. I agree.
Who are some of those that you're digging right now?
I love Tyler Childers. A friend of mine sent me a video of him when he was about 16. And before he moved, I called him. I'm not saying I discovered Tyler Childers, but I knew about him way early on. I took a buddy of mine up to go see him. There were 5 people there to see him. He was playing on a loading dock with no lights at this outdoor street fest. And I got him to come to Nashville and open for our band 18 South at the Station Inn. And he just blew the doors down on it, And I was a fan early on of his. I think he's great. And obviously we all love Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
I wish Jack Ingram was here because I could tell this story, but I was backstage at the CMA that year that Stapleton came out in
2015
with Timberlake, right? And I get a phone call from Ingram afterwards, and he goes, man, I love how Nashville felt like they had to have Justin Timberlake come out and tell everybody it's okay to think Chris Stapleton's cool.
Right.
Well,
like,
we talked about that.
Knew he was cool.
You guys knew far in advance, and but we saw him, Wes, right?
Yeah. Is that Tyler?
I said this last week. No, Chris. At Joe's Bar in Chicago, couldn't have sold more than like
250 tickets, maybe 300 tickets.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like,
tables were out,
tables were out, people sitting there just listening to the guy play music up there.
The guy just murder.
Next thing you know, he's on the CMA Awards. And
well, the thing is too, it's crazy that like Traveler came out and then it didn't really do as much as he thought, and then he goes on with Justin Timberlake, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah,
it's like he's been here.
He's been here
a long time. How did nobody know this?
Yeah, exactly.
Writing songs for Darius and Kenny and
Luke
like,
yeah, great writer, great singer. But yeah, man.
I don't know. I feel like I'm encouraged though. I feel like country music is moving towards a better place. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know more than me, but
I don't. I have no idea. I just know I'm trying to. I can only control what I do, and I'm trying to help artists make records that they're proud of. And that it's different genres, different sounds, different styles. But if we can make stuff that we feel like I said, I want to make records that I would get by.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the goal for me. And I don't don't really play the game so great, but hopefully, you know, I won't ruin anybody's career.
Yeah, for sure. You're also a sneaky good vocalist. I don't think people realize that, but you sing pretty damn well.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I like to. I'll. It's easy for getting the harmony vocals on a record. You know.
Yeah.
I can just go knock one out and go, okay, cool, let's keep trucking. So,
Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
We talked about this before we went live, but Dierks Bentley gonna do another bluegrass album? You produced Up on the Ridge?
I hope so. I don't know. We're working on. I'm working on some of his new record that we're getting together for this year, but we talk about it. You know, it's a topic over a couple of beers every now and then. So hopefully maybe we'll get back in there. I'd love to.
How's this new record going to be? Pretty amazing.
Cool, man. Yeah. It's some of it's leaning a little backcountry. You know, he always likes to sprinkle some bluegrass in there. And that's kind of how I usually get involved, is when he wants to have a little bit of that Telluride hippie grass energy in there somewhere. So it's going to be a pretty cool record, man. There's some really good songs on it.
Yeah, well, like Traveling Light with Brandy Carlisle, man, what a song.
That was so fun. That was so much fun.
Got the mountain up there on the shelf.
that was a fun ride. We made that in Telluride.
Yeah.
That was
cool.
That was a fun record to make. We hauled a bunch of gear out there to this cool, funky studio up in the mountains and just camped out up there for a week.
They just have studios in the mountains that tell you.
Yeah, this guy has this crazy. He lives up about 45 minutes out of Telluride and has this really cool studio up there, and so yeah, we just took it over. It was fun. It was a really fun record to make.
Awesome. And Jon, thank you so much for your time. Marfa Tapes, amazing. You're working with Trace Bryant, his new album, Parker McCollum. A lot of stuff going on. Am I missing anything there?
No. Well, just and Miranda. Me and Luke Dick are making a record on Miranda, which is
there you go.
Really
You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Wait. Is this breaking news? Like, Miranda's got a new record coming out with.
Well, we're just working on it.
Yeah.
We're working on it. I don't know. It probably won't be out till next year. I don't know.
I actually love Luke's last project. His whole. So cool.
You talking about the Republican hair stuff, or
no, the his hometown thing with the strip club and the song that Miranda sang on
polyester.
Yeah.
Have you seen his documentary he did?
I didn't watch it yet, but it's on my things to
it's
do.
Awesome, man. Yeah. It's awesome. It's about his mom. She was a stripper at the Red Dog.
Oh, that's
in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, and it's a really well done documentary. So check it out.
Yeah, we talked about getting him on the podcast a while back, and then we just never did. And then I think we could probably revisit that because we.
Yeah, you should, man. He's a maniac, and I mean that in like the most genius, incredibly creative way. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, Jon.
Hey, man.
Fun, dude. Hopefully we can get together soon and have some in-person beers or tequila or peyote.
I'm all down. Hey, you should drive up to Telluride in July when me and Jack get up there.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Hopefully he'll show up for the gig.
Yeah, we're calling out Jack right now for not showing up to this.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm gonna throw him under the bus since he's not here, man.
I love it.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I really, really enjoyed it, man. Thanks.
We appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right, dude.
See you.
Y'all be good.
You too.